Today I'm gonna be working on a 2019 Honda Fit, also known as Honda Jazz GK5. I'm gonna be replacing the two filters in the transmission as well as the gaskets and the fluid itself. This method might be similar for some HRVs from 2016 to 2022. I'm gonna be using Honda OEM parts, not generic, no aftermarket parts, period. I ended up using just 5 quarts of oil because I replaced both of the transmission filters. It's quite the opposite when we are just dealing with a fluid replacement. It will require only 4 to 4.5 quarts of oil. It will get nasty and messy with the transmission fluid, so I will use gloves most of the time. And finally, since I'm working under the car, I will put the car on jack stands safely. I'm going to start removing the airbox by disconnecting the main 2 intake ducts. The main one on the top and the small one on the bottom. I'm loosening the main clamp, then I will remove this aluminum pipe. Then I'm disconnecting the mass airflow sensor harness and I'm detaching the plastic clips from the airbox with a pair of pliers. The next thing is to use a ratchet with an extension utilizing a 10mm socket to detach the airbox from the throttle body. Then I remove the plastic cover from underneath the engine, and this car will take HCF2 Honda fluid. A 3/8 drive ratchet and a 17mm socket will do the job for this time. Unscrew and remove this oil level check plug from the front of the transmission. Then I place an oil drain pan underneath the transmission. Then with the help of the 3/8 ratchet drive, I unscrewed this draining plug to collect a sample of the old transmission fluid. To drain the transmission fluid faster, I completely removed the oil level check plug from the front of the transmission. The fluid doesn't look bad because this is a 30,000 mile car and the transmission fluid replacement must be done every 30,000 miles. Now it's time to unbolt those 17 bolts surrounding the transmission oil pan. This will release more fluid if you start from the back. This transmission fluid pan has 2 prying points. This is the first one on the back and the other one on the front once I'm done with unbolting those 17 bolts. Now we have a clear visual of this oil pickup filter held by 2 bolts. After removing those, I detach the pickup filter and more fluid will come out, just like this. Woo. With the airbox out of the way, we can have a clear visual to work on this transmission warmer. It's held by 3 bolts, 2 on the top and 1 on the bottom. This transmission warmer has a filter inside and also requires 3 types of gaskets. I successfully removed this little filter by utilizing a pair of adjusting pliers. Upon inspection, it looks good to me. CVTs have a bad reputation because they are unreliable most of the time. In my case, I was very fortunate not to find big shavings of metal or large chunks of the CVT chain swimming on the oil. Having a darker color on the filters means that they are doing their job, including this magnetized drain plug. It has a fine layer of a material that looks like graphene. This is a sign of normal wear on the transmissions, and these magnets work really well with the filters to extend the longevity of the transmission. Upon inspection, the surface of the exchanger of the transmission warmer needs a cleanup. I cleaned up the mating surface successfully with a piece of Scotch-Brite. Then I placed brand new gaskets on the exchanger and also a brand new gasket on the filter. And I push the filter back in the housing until it clicks. Then I reassembled this warmer back into the transmission. Then I inspected the torque converter by removing this cover. I turned the wheels and none of the teeth were damaged. And after that I proceeded to clean the magnets and the oil pan. Your dealership and your dishonest mechanic will not go this far because they prefer to sell you a brand new car or a brand new transmission for a small fortune. Seriously, dude, stop scamming on people. But look at this pair of magnets. They're so nasty, but they are doing their job and I'm happy with them. It's time to clean up this oil pan and also replace this cardboard gasket. Yes, you heard it right. It's a cardboard gasket. It's easy to peel off this gasket starting from the corner of this oil pan. And after cleaning up the mating surfaces, I replace it with a brand new gasket. This magnet will be back on the pan. It doesn't matter in which order you take them off because they are the same. A brand new gasket goes on the outlet port of this pickup filter. It's time to reassemble everything back underneath the transmission. Starting with this filter, I made sure I adjusted those 2 bolts to a spec, 7 foot-pounds. 36 foot-pounds for the draining plug, and 12 foot-pounds for the bolts surrounding the oil pan. The longer ones go on the front and the smaller ones go on the back. Everything is bolted, included the transmission warmer. Now it's time to refill the transmission with fresh transmission oil. So this is why I removed the airbox to get me access to this rubber plug from the top of the transmission, and I start to pour in just 3 quarts with a clean funnel to avoid any cross-contamination. Just 3 quarts for now. Then I proceeded to place the airbox back into place. I know this is gonna be difficult to reach out the filling port from the top, but I have the solution for that. I have an oil pump that connects to the bottle, and it will be easier to fill up the transmission. Then I started the engine to warm it up to operating temperature. I was monitoring the temperature using my scanner. After reaching operating temperature, I started cycling the transmission by changing the gears and waiting for 15 seconds on every single gear. This helps the transmission to distribute the fresh oil. Then I shut the car off and I removed the oil level check plug from the front of the transmission. And then I started pumping until I see a little drip of oil coming out from this port. Then with a new crush washer, I gave it a 32 foot-pounds of torque, and the transmission is sealed from the bottom. Then I removed the feeding tube from the pump and I replaced the rubber plug from the top of the transmission. It's treacherous with the airbox in place, but it's doable. Here's a quick comparison. The brand new oil looks golden and the old one looks like regular coffee with no sugar. See you, ciao, alligators!